life till lager. No life till lager.
Welcome to No Life Till Lager, a show about lager beer, the brewers who make it, and we that drink it. This is a conversation between two people over one pint. My name is Adam Zuniga. I'm a failed master Cicerone. I'm part of the creative team behind the 6 Most Metal Breweries and Beer Like and Das Movie. My guest today is Todd DiMatteo, co-owner, head brewer at Good Word Brewing and Public House in Duluth, Georgia. If craft beer is dead, welcome to the afterlife. Thank you for joining No Life Till Lager, Todd.
Adam, thanks for having me. And I like that you plugged our little philosophy.
I mean, I think you have the best craft beer to go fridge of any brewery I've ever seen. I love your support and enthusiasm for No Life Till Lager. I'd say half the breweries I reach out to are just like, fuck yeah, and the other half politely ghost me. Thank you for being in the fuck yeah camp, my friend. I am grateful for it.
Dude, thank you for having me. I mean, at almost 46 years old, I'm either a fuck yeah or a no fucking way. You know, because life is short.
Yeah.
So do the things you love, and anything that's going to support and enrich beer is good by me, especially when it's lager-centric. So I'm glad to support and glad to be part of this.
Well said, my friend. So our listeners know I want to talk about you. I want to talk about the brewery, and I want to talk about your beer. First and foremost, can you speak to the beers in our hand? I'm drinking Todd Die. I believe it's a Czech-style Pilsner, clocking in at 5% alcohol. What's your problems with Todd's, man? Why all the hate?
Clearly, it's a bit self-deprecating, but, you know, the real story is, Untappd is probably the most talked about app in the brewing world amongst brewers, mostly shitted on, and for good reason. You know, it's not that I don't think that it doesn't have its place, but if you don't qualify the user, you shouldn't affect my brewery or my friend's brewery. And I think that, you know, us brewers realize that, you know, looking at something like Untappd, especially from buyer's perspective, it drives what they purchase, right? And so somebody named Todd, and I always have joked about it being one of the worst names ever, shitted on our mild some time ago. And I was like, you know what? Fuck that guy. Todd Die. And, you know, again, having a little fun with myself. Most folks, when we bring this to an event, are like, I got a Todd in our group. We got to get one of these. Get a picture of it. So there's a lot of excitement about Todd Die. But it was actually the first can label we did, and it was the first beer we canned outside of Crowlers. This and Never Sleep. But I remember telling the can artist, and you can look at yours, but I was like, can you just make me dying all over the place? So there's Todd's drinking poison, being eaten by a dinosaur, you know, all sorts of fun ways for Todd's to die. But very cute and comical, and truly keeping it a little light. And just under Pilsner, it says Todd's are terrible and they must pay. But, you know, sort of an inside joke about the shittiness of Untappd. Sorry, guys, but it's true. And it's a little self-deprecating humor, but honestly, one of my favorite beers.
Mine too now. I love the backstory. I love that shots are fired at Untappd right out the gate. And so originally I thought this might be a Simpsons reference. I was like, is it D Todd? D, you know?
Love Simpsons, and I definitely, when we first released it, there was some regulars who were like, oh, it's a Simpsons riff. And I'm like, as much as I love the Simpsons, and I truly do, it's not. But yeah, you know, we call this just Pilsner, but if you ask me, it's Bohemian Pilsner. But it's like a lot of things for us, it's a beer that's, you know, it's Czech malt and it's Saaz hops, but it's on deck yeast, so it's a little bit of a hybrid. We do a decoction on it, so it's Czech, but you know, after going to the Czech Republic a few months back, I had the honor of going with the agriculture group. It was amazing. You definitely have to get used to diacetyl. 2 days in, and I felt like I was getting my master Cicerone in just diacetyl because I became an expert.
Nice.
But it is beautiful. It's a wonderful culture as far as, you know, we had plenty of beer that didn't have diacetyl, but the first 2 days I had lots and lots of it. But the Czech pouring culture and the pub culture was fucking amazing. Like I loved it. Super inspired by it. But what I found with a lot of the Czech brewers is kind of that mentality of like, well, I'm Czech. I brewed this, so it's this Czech beer. But we do try to pay honor to what we can find about tradition, our firsthand from books, brewers, or our friends or whatever when we're making classic styles. But this one's one that's kind of a hybrid. But yeah, Todd
Yeah.
Die.
Well, fuck the haters. Untapped has come up, I think, on every single episode.
Yeah,
If you're listening, know that brewers are reading, and your comments do make or break, or at least make an impact and can hurt.
yeah,
So, by all means, mind your manners on Untapped. I only use it now to check, like, basically names and ABV, alcohol percentage. I
yeah,
don't regularly log it. I don't use it as social media. I use it as basically a dictionary, an encyclopedia, a resource tool. And for that, it has value. But going on there and like,
yeah.
yeah, throwing shade or throwing shots, no, absolutely not.
I think it's great. Like I said, if they qualified the user, totally
Hmm.
affect the brewery. But my thinking is, if you don't take some sort of test that says this person knows what they're talking about, then you don't get the score, right? You just get the
Yeah.
log, right? Because the score does affect breweries. I've had breweries, and some brewers love that they have a great score. And it's great. It's annoying. Like if you're ever feeling really good about your beer or your brews or whatever, just look on Untappd. It'll definitely take you down a peg or two. But it's just it's to me it's that little bit of the Aurora Boreas where you have the snake eating the tail a little bit. Like I feel like Untappd and the users were kind of driving what some brewers were making,
Yeah.
because it was what was selling because it was scoring well, and then the retailers and the distributors or wholesalers looking at it, and so then you have the rise of a few styles of beer, right, and then
Yeah.
all this other classic style and esoteric stuff just kind of fell to the wayside. So I won't put all the blame on Untappd because I'd just be not right and kind of unfair, but you know we use Ollie, so I think next glass is good for something. But
Oh,
fuck them,
sure.
Untappd.
Yeah. Well, Todd, wherever you are, I guess we owe that Todd a thank you because of it helped inspire this beer. The name of this beer, the can, the label art, some of my favorite. I guess Todd served his purpose, and if this is your house beer, grateful to share it with you now. So, moving right along, Todd, let's get to know you. Tell me about life before beer. Tell me about other jobs you've had, and tell me about how you ultimately turned this passion into a profession at Good Word.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm 45. I got into beer. I got into like craft beer, I guess around 22 or so. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and
Ah,
that was before Asheville was what it is now. Of course, there was already Highland Brewing was up there, but I remember drinking Highland, Gaelic Ale, and sometimes a liquor stout. And I would get 2 or 420. This is all when I had a little bit of money. Like during the same time, if I was kind of broke, I was drinking shitty macro beer. But it was my first like foray into drinking good beer, and I'd mix in a little Guinness. And I remember around that same time I started drinking like Sam Smith. Um, you know, I would go to, I forget the name of the something life, whole life, or some kind of specialty store in Asheville, and I would buy like the little bottles of Sam Smith beer. And
sure.
it was awesome, oat milk stout and all that. But that was my
Love it.
first foray into it. But I want to say I was there for a few years, and then I moved to back to Atlanta. And in 2005, I started working at Brickstore Pub, which is 29 next year. It's one of the best pubs. I'd say it's the best pub. I'm obviously biased in the country. It's always ranked in the top list, and all the best people know that this is the place. And so anyway, my wife, we were dating at the time. She brought me into this place, and I was hooked. I was definitely intimidated by the amount of beer that they had. It was like pages and pages, and I was like, holy shit. And I ended up having the same beer over and over. It was the Flying Dog Gonzo Porter, and it's a
Oh,
strong beer. But I was, so intimidated by the list. I was like, I'm just going to get this again. And I remember being like 2 or 3 Gonzos deep, and asked the server, I was like, "Hey man, is it uncouth if I ask for an application?" He's like, "No, we're a bar." And I was like, "All right, cool." So interviewed, the next week, and then started working there, and worked there for a little under 12 years. And during the last few years of that, I started homebrewing. I'd always been a musician, so I played music for a while. But when I started
excellent.
homebrewing, yeah, my wife was like, "Listen, pick a hobby because you're doing and wasting all this time and money and energy on both these things. So choose one. So I
Yeah.
slowly wound down the band and started selling music gear to buy homebrewing stuff. And my homebrewing like stand was crazy. I had this welder, make it, and it was expensive as hell. And I took the half barrel kegs, and instead of using the MP2 fittings, I had them weld like tri-clamp fittings, and it was a pretty serious kit. I would
It's
brew,
impressive.
yeah, it was crazy, but I brew like 3 to 5 times a week. And, I want to say it was 2014 or 2015, was planning to do something else. I was like, whether it be a pub, and the idea of owning a brewery or brew pub was not really on my radar, right? To be honest with you. And the more I started homebrewing, the more I knew I didn't want to just go open like just a bar. Not that bars are just bars; some of them are so special. Of course, I like Brick Store, but eventually got hung up on this idea, and me and the beer buyer at Brick Store decided we want to open a brew pub, and the guys from Batchelor joined us, and we looked all around the city where to put it. Never thought we'd be out here in the burbs, but truthfully, I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, the city's been absolutely incredible for us. I mean, they, you know, they've been over backwards to get us here, and then just before COVID hit, they helped finance our building for us, so we own our building. Obviously, paying a mortgage on it, but still, it's like, over the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of the breweries like not doing well or whatever. And a lot of times it has to do with the lease going up.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to worry about that. So we're very, very fortunate and lucky that way. So wouldn't change any of that for the world. But yeah, in the beginning, sorry, I guess I skipped a lot there. But, in the beginning, I was just playing middle between the brewery here at Good Word and the restaurant. We hired a brewer, and hired him about 3 months before we opened. At that point, all he and I did was work on like recipes together. And I was like, well, let's do this and do that. But he was doing all the actual work. I would do some cellar stuff, but I didn't really know my way around a brewery. And so after about 2.5 months of being open, he left and went back to Canada. He's been here all in just under 6 months. And so his visa was running out. And, he let us believe that he was going to come back. He was gone for like a week, and he finally told us, like, I'm not coming back. I remember this first brew, and I've told this story before to anyone who listened, but it was crazy the first time I brewed because, our system isn't huge. It's a 10-barrel brew house. That's 3 vessel, and it has like an automation package or whatever. But I never brewed on it. And the guy who had done the automation setup for us during build out had been fired because he was like a fall down drunk. Super nice guy. But when I went to go clean the tank the first time, I didn't know how to do that. I was on YouTube. I mean, it was crazy. There's this guy, I'm forgetting his name, Jasper, or something like this, on YouTube. And he's got tons of videos. And I was watching all these videos to try to figure out how to clean the tank and do this and do that. And I started at probably 6 in the morning, and I think I left around 3 a.m. with beer inside of a fermenter. Well, I should say wort inside of a fermenter.
Yeah.
And it was called Man in Motion. It was a table beer. And yeah, I just remember being like, all right, that was such a long and hard process. If this is the worst day, everything else is going to be easy.
It can only get better.
And, it did, honestly, like,
Yeah.
4 to 6 months of tough. And I did try to find a brewer for a while, but there was a sort of sense of pride. Like, I don't want to be put back in that same position where somebody can, leave and just upend our whole shit. And
Sure.
then I'm thrust back into it. So for a while, I did both brewery and front of house managing. So I would get in the morning, get dirty as hell, change my clothes, and come and run the floor in the evening. And I did that for about 6 months. And I remember being, I told my partner, I was like, I can't keep this up. So we promoted someone to help him, and then I took over the brewery full time. And the beer for the first 4 to 6 months after I took over, it was fun. Some not fun. But I kept learning. Like, I think anybody who knows me would probably say that I'm a very inquisitive person. Like, I'm a hard worker for sure, but I don't have the give up thing in my body. Like, if I'm often inspired by negative somebody's negative comments were like, oh yeah, fucking I die, die, die. I'll show you.
Yeah, back to
But
Untappd.
so yeah, I just kept my head down and I would ask questions. And if there was ever a brewer that I would become friends with or whatever, I would pick their brain. It was a big part of what I owe any success that we would have is to asking people their opinions and gleaning what I could from them.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Well, I love that you're a musician turned brewer and a brewer that still hopefully plays some music or kept some of that gear. They go
yeah,
hand in hand. Every brew house has a musician, if not like a
yeah,
band within it,
yeah,
and the whole like gear acquisition syndrome, gas, I understand how it can translate to playing music or building a
yeah,
brewery. So that is badass. Here's to Gonzo, here's to Flying Dog and Hunter
yeah,
S. Thompson. I'm glad it inspired you to like formally get into the beer business and think about
yeah,
applying and kind of growing as a brewer. And all of it, there are no accidents, led you to the here and now.
totally.
That Duluth has been so that this journey kind of began in Asheville, which is now a beer mecca in its own right. But
Yeah.
that led to Duluth. I want to talk more about that and just how. So, Good Word founded what, like 2017,
Yeah, so
about that time?
2017. Yeah, so like I said, we kind of looked around everywhere for. It's funny, music has to do with us being out here too.
I believe
Um,
it.
so we looked around for a while, and I think everybody knows, especially now, how expensive everything is. But you're trying to like start a restaurant and brewery, like it's a big thing. Like I walk in some breweries and I'm like, damn, there's so much money in this thing, and I'll look in the front of the house, the tap room or whatever, and it's very sparse or whatever. So like for us, we want to make sure that we really focus, especially coming from brick store. Like the atmosphere is so much a part of who we were, who they are.
Yeah,
And so we didn't want people to feel like they were just transplanted into some warehouse district. Like we're like, and no knock to people who are in those spaces. I get it. Do what you can with what you can. One of my
totally.
favorite breweries and good friends of mine, Eric Cohesion, he is in a space like that, but he has made it amazing. Like I, I went to this place before I went to Czech Republic, but once I was in Czech Republic, the first place I had a beer was with him. Uh, but I'm like, damn, he captured it so well. He took
Oh.
down the grand space of everything, made it feel real intimate. He did a great fucking job. So it is possible for it to be done. But
Shout
back to
out to
us,
Eric at Cohesion, just
just
former
want
guest on this show, and a
oh, cool,
name and a
cool.
brewery that keeps coming up. So yeah,
Yeah,
all in the family. That's awesome.
just one of the best guys ever in great beer. Um, but anyway, so we want to make sure that the restaurant had a lot of focus. Not that we
Mm.
weren't not focused on the brewery, of course, but it was important. So it was either not the right location. We wanted to be around families. My original business plan had like a playground as part of the thing, depending on where we landed. Like if we had space, I wanted in dollars left over. There's never dollars left over. I wanted to make a playground because at the
For
time we were
kids or
looking for
adults?
the giant Jenga. We don't do the giant Jenga. We did at a time, but now for the kids, for sure. I mean, we were pregnant with our third daughter at the time. A little over 8 years ago, and
Yeah,
so I'm a family guy. And I wanted a place where families kind of feel that. I know that it's a hot button issue in breweries these days. People, not necessarily brewers complaining about it, but mostly like guests on Reddit and stuff like this, complain about kids running around everywhere. And yeah, I don't want unattended children running around our restaurant, of course, but we want a place where families and communities feel welcome. Because for us, we're a
absolutely.
public house, right? We're where you come to celebrate, commiserate, fucking all of it in between, all of that. So we came out to Duluth, right? And they had just leveled this side of the downtown. And Adam, you should come. And we should talk about Little Beer, but you should come to Little Beer next year. I would love to have you here.
I
Do a
hope
show.
so. Yeah,
We have about 90 brewers and over half of them focused, almost half of them focused primarily on lager. So, our big part, I should say. Anyway, it's amazing. You'll love it. You'll have plenty of interview time if you're
yeah.
able to
No,
do
we
it.
will
But
definitely get to Little Beer Fest.
I love it. But anyway, so we came out here and they just leveled this side. It was like literally clay, and I just didn't see it. I didn't have the vision. consider myself somebody who is artistic and can kind of see things, especially outside the box, but I didn't see it. And I think it was because I lived in Decatur. I was right down from Brick Store, and I had snuck into this old building that was like kind of dilapidated, and it was across from this wonderful restaurant called Kimball House. It's still there. It's one of the best in the Southeast. They're amazing. But anyway, I would sneak into this building across from Kimball House, and anybody who would follow me over there, whether it would be a builder, a business partner, whoever, I'm like, all right, this is what it's going to be. And this building was a piece of shit. I mean, it was terrible. There was like 5 parking spaces. It was not the building, clearly. But I was so hooked on not leaving Decatur that it was hard for me to see value in other places. So kind of poo-pooed on this Duluth spot. We kept looking for a little while longer. And then one of my partners was like, hey, come back out here. There's a concert going on. It was Driving and Crying, which you probably know Driving and Crying.
Yeah.
And came to downtown Duluth on this town green where we have Little Beer, where we have Mighty Finer IPA Fest. And there was 8,000, they said 8,000 people down here for this concert. And I was like, I'm all in. You know, my wife came with me and she was pregnant. And I'm like, we're going to do this. And so I loaded her up in the car for 6 or 7 Sundays in a row. And we looked for houses. And she poo-pooed on the houses out here. She didn't want to be in the burbs. And then finally, the last day, we found a house that we both we're in now. We've been there for 9 years. So yeah, it was 9 years ago we moved out here. We took the building in 2016, and then we finally opened in 2017. But yeah, so music's had a lot to do with it. I do still have a little bit of music gear, by the way. I sold most of it. I kept one electric guitar. It's a Gibson 335, and I'll get my Martin acoustic electric. But I don't play them that often, man. I swear. I feel like at some point I'm like the old man band thing, because I see this in beer a lot. It's like, all right, 55, and like I'm not that far from 55, but so like let's play some Grateful Dead or whatever. But
I
don't
hope
know.
so.
I hope so too, man. Honestly,
Yeah, Todd. Now you're a busy man. You're a family man. And what's in a name? Why Good Word? And I want to just talk a little bit more about the brewery itself, because you're not lager exclusive, but you're definitely lager centric. You're definitely lager led. I'm curious if that was kind of part of your vision from the beginning. Did it evolve over time? So what is the Good Word? What's in a name? And how did you gradually come to invest in lager to the point of running your own festival, which we'll get to as well with Little Beer Fest? But tell me a little bit more.
So yeah, Good Word, the name. Coming up with a name was a little hard because again, coming from bands, I'm a sort of a lyrical person, and I was a songwriter in the 2 bands that I was in. And so I think lyrically, but I always had a hard time of condensing names down. So outside of a few beer names, you'll see some of ours are very long-winded. I'm kind of like my buddy Jason Pellet from Orpheus. We're lyrical. We can't shorten them that much. We're not like our good buddies at Schilling. They're good about one-word names. I have a hard time with that. But coming up with the name of the brewery was me and one of my partners. We were like talking about it ad nauseum. We're pitching ideas. Neither of us liked any idea together. And this is the true story. I'll tell you what we tell people, but this is the real story. So I say word. I'm a child of the 80s, right? I was born in 79, so I'm very used to saying word. And so if you ever text me, I'll usually, when I agree on word, that's how I finish it. And so he suggested Word Brewing, I swear, like as a joke. And I was like, what about Good Word? And that's as simple as it is. But to try to give the name a little more weight and chutzpah, whatever, we're like, a place that, people could gather, like saying the good word, like not religious at all. No, knock to people who are religious. We are in a very religious area out here in the burbs, and a lot of people early on were like, "Oh, are they Christians?" And it's like, no problem with Christians, by the way. But we are not. That is not where it came from. But anyway, that could come up. We never thought about it that way. Yeah, what's a good word? But it was more
in
like
the beginning. There was the word.
In the beginning, there was only one word. And it was word. But the saying from the 70s, like, what's the good word? And that kind of thing. So we just kind of cobbled it together, and we have this long thing. I'll actually send it to you after we hang up. But it's essentially Good Word is made up of mitzvahs of, all types of people in this little melting pot. Because this little strip that we're in, like, yes, we're in the Burbs, but this little area we're in off of Buford Highway, it is literally with some of the best people and best ethnic foods you can find fucking
Yeah.
anywhere. I mean, you name some, and so also I should say I'm raised by a Puerto Rican grandmother. So I grew up kind of eating other food, right, in a small town in Alabama. So being out here has been great. My wife is she's half Korean, so this is the fourth largest Korean population, I think it is. So when her mom comes here, she absolutely loves it. But anyway, so we have all these great cultures, and so we wanted a place that was truly built of its community. Like if you see some of our beers, I've got a beer called Hominy, which is named for my this grandmother in Korean, but it's got my mother-in-law's picture on it. So, and we have
Ah,
Puerto Rican Pilsner with the Puerto Rican flag on there. So,
I've seen that's beautiful.
yeah,
You
we're a
know,
punchy little brewery.
that Duluth is that diverse. Was that welcoming and accommodating to
Yeah,
you as a brewery? It's worth just taking a moment to appreciate like Georgia and the Georgia beer scene because maybe it's not one of the first states that comes to mind for beer, for food that you just mentioned. But I'm
yeah,
guessing there is a lot of everything when you look for it. I mean, Atlanta is such a cultural hub, like
yeah.
for music, for film and television production, and presumably for beer as well, which is why you're located, what, just like 20, 30 minutes outside of it?
So we're 22 miles from the city, and
Mm.
so from here to Brickstore is like 38 minutes without traffic. And anybody who's been to Atlanta knows that doesn't happen unless it's like
Right.
midnight. But about 45 minutes from the city. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you want to come see us, you're gonna drive. Um,
Yeah.
we're like midpoint between the city and Athens.
Yeah. And then just what is it about Duluth? What is it about Georgia that you would say really enabled you to find a home there? You mentioned like the city welcomed you.
Yeah,
Um, what is it that makes it that you are thriving post pandemic and what other people are citing as like kind of a struggling market right now? What is it that you were able to set up like a lager led brewery, ultimately hold these kind of brewery owned and operated beer festivals, open a public house as a community gathering space? What is it about the people in place that enables you to do all this?
I don't know. I think that we're fortunate. I, I was born in Georgia, even though I've spent time in other states. I lived in North Carolina for a while.
Hmm.
And if I ever lived somewhere else, I'd probably be North Carolina. I certainly love the state. But I lived in Florida for a little while and short time in Pennsylvania. But I always came back to Georgia, always. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I've got family here and some in North Carolina as well. But I feel like for us, when the law changed in the beer laws in 2016, 2015, somewhere in there, they changed to allow breweries, not brew pubs, we have a brew pub license, to get away from the tasting that they had. You used to have to buy tickets for taste and all that kind of stuff. So it was like kind of a barrier point. There's still some, outdated laws. We suffer a little bit, but for the most
Yeah.
part,
Everywhere.
Georgia's a pretty welcoming state. But it wasn't like, I don't know. I think that whenever you are audacious enough to open a business, it's not like, I don't feel like I was so like, oh, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna change the beer world. I have so much to offer. I was a fucking home brewer. I think I was just excited and naive, and you know, I love beer and I love hospitality.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where my strength always has been is hospitality. And I think I learned how to be a good brewer. But why are we succeeding? I don't know. We've been getting better all the time, and I think it has a lot to do with our staff. Our kitchen, our chef is amazing. His team is great. Our
Yeah.
front of house leadership is awesome. They're super empathetic, and they know. I don't know. They know how to communicate with each other, and they know how to communicate with the guests. And I think that we've got, I don't know, an audience that is primed and ready for what we're doing. And I think they, for the most part, have come to learn what to expect from us for the most part. Like we have a great cocktail and wine program too. Like again,
Yeah.
being a brew pub, it allows us not to have just our own beer. And I'm not a seltzer water brewer. I don't have to worry about that. No knock to anybody who has to do it. I get it. But we have a full license. We have a bar. We sell plenty of booze and cocktails and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But as far as becoming a lager brewery and all this kind of stuff, it kind of has to do with COVID. Like we opened with lagers, right? So we had a lager 3 weeks after we opened. We brewed it as soon as we could, but we were always going to have at least one or two. But I wanted, when we had the brewer here, originally the guy was from Canada, I kind of just told him I wanted to have a beer list that was very similar to Brickstore, right? When I was there, we had a very well-rounded list. It had a lot of European-style beers that included not just Saison and a little bit of lager, but English beer. And the bottle list is just insane. But it had a little bit of everything. And that's what I really loved and appreciated about that is like you didn't have to be a beer geek, snob, or just, whatever. It was a little bit of something for everybody. It was for the uncles and the aunts and the guy with the pumps and all that kind of stuff. But
hell yeah.
But with COVID, so our best food menu we've ever put out was first week of March of 2020. It was amazing. I'll put that menu against anybody else who is doing for the size. And our space is huge. I was kind of saying that earlier. Not talking about layout. Like we have a little over 200 seats. Sure, there's places that are bigger, but it's a pretty big fucking place. All in the building is under 9,000 square feet, but we've only got 2,200 square foot brewery space. So it's tight, but not uncomfortable. I've been in some spaces where I'm always blown away by what we get done. But the menu that we had first week of 2020 was fucking incredible. I'm saying seriously. And I say it with humble pride that I would put it against anybody else that's doing that kind of food at that price point. So it was amazing.
Nice.
And then we closed like a week later. And so we had all this. Yeah, or 2 weeks later, whatever it was. We closed within a week of changing the menu. So we had all this product on hand. And so we were like, all right, well, we'll freeze what we can and let's give the rest of it away. And so we turned to a soup kitchen. So I think we were one of the first people to not a race to close, but I remember closing and, our partner, we were just like, will we ever reopen? It was scary. I know everybody has that story, but we closed very early on and became a soup kitchen. So we would make crowlers in the day. And it was just me and my partner for a little while, for a few weeks. And then some of the other folks were inspired what we were doing that were working with us before. They're like, I want to come back. Our chef and our sous chef came back and they wanted to help us. But we would make crowlers in the day and sell those to make money. And then we were giving away soup. So we would give soup away to anybody, right? Like it would turn into it was really done for the service industry because that's where our heart is, because that's where we've been. But anybody in need could have soup. And so we'd package it up and they would take it away. And we started getting a lot of, news and press and all this kind of stuff about it. And it was cool. But I knew we had to be careful because it wasn't like we're trying to be exploitative and all that kind of stuff. So we did it for a few months. And then as we started bringing people back on, we were working with masks and doing to-go only for like selling food. We didn't quite turn off the soup kitchen, right? When you start doing stuff like that and you start seeing people who are affected, because it wasn't the people who were coming in to get this, soup to take home, it wasn't COVID that was now forcing them for the most part. It was like people in need that have been in need for a long, long time. And so when you see the same people come in and being like apologetic about the food, it's like, holy shit, it's crazy.
It's really, really kind. And a silver lining in COVID, some success, not as a result of COVID, but that you made it work and made the most of it. And I mean, brewery by day, soup kitchen by night. Of course, the word got out that Good Word is supporting its community. That's wonderful.
It was cool. But I remember trying to put it down. My wife was like, all right, what was the dream? Was it to be soup kitchen or was it to, and she didn't, of course she is generous, way more generous than I am, but she was just being pragmatic. Like, all right, were you trying to open a soup kitchen or are you trying to open a brewery? And so,
I mean, in the same way, we've got to give a shout out to your wife. What's her name?
Her name's Rhonda.
Rhonda, so in the same way that she was like, all right, what's the job and what's the hobby? What's the gig and
Yeah,
what's like really the gig between music and beer? A good wife behind the scenes at
that's
Good
right.
Word. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
cheers to that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
cheers to that.
yeah. So yeah, I did it on Sundays, and eventually we wound it all the way down. But anyway, it was, you know, it was a lot of that giving back to the community, like in a real visceral sort of way that I think bought a lot of goodwill for us, and it was great. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. When I see people, partly I blame Untappd, dude. I'm serious. I'm being serious. Like it was partly our fault too. I just remember. I mean, our fault as brewers. I remember when I got into beer when I was at a brick store. Like you had to really know your shit. I mean, you're seeing a resurgence of this now, right? You see a resurgence of like you have to really know what you're talking about when you're talking about beer and when you're educating about beer and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like for a while there on Instagram was like, all right, it's glute gop time, and I've got and the shot of on Instagram was just like cheesecake and fucking whatever is in the glass. I don't know. I'm just saying like some of
Yeah,
that you weren't really moving the you weren't progressing the conversation, right? It
no,
was just
no.
the chase to the bottom kind of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, we've made some stupid shit in the past, and that is also part of COVID, and also kind of getting us out of that little sort of identity crisis that I think we kind of had in the beginning. Like when I took the ship over, I was like, I don't know, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make people excited about us. And I used to
Yeah.
send beer to you name a brewery that was awesome. I would send them a brewery like, hey, I'm doing beer and love to host you. And not that I don't send beer out from time to time now, I definitely do. But I feel like early on we had a little bit of an identity crisis, and like COVID definitely shook that kind of off my. I mean, still even I think a lot of people get imposter syndrome. I definitely do. Walk into a room like a festival where there's all these great brews, and like, why the fuck am I here? Because my beer,
I
that's fine.
mean,
But
Todd,
no, I'm not. I'm not trying to get you to say anything like that. But I
no, I
do.
mean, I gotta make a few points here. So one, I think you sent me one of the most creative boxes of beer I've ever received, and yeah, again, lager centric, very much enjoying
Yeah.
Todd Die and your Bohemian Pills. But the fact that it included some West Coast IPA, the fact that it included English style brown ale, English style bitter, and all of
Yeah.
these beers kind of scratch a similar itch.
Yeah.
Smaller beers, bigger character. It kind of
Yeah.
I've definitely never received a bitter or a brown ale in the mail courtesy of any brewery. So
Nice.
thank you
Good.
for that. And,
Shout out
speaking to
English
like,
beers.
yeah, there you go. It's been said before on this show that, yeah, bitter is going to be all the rage. Bitter's coming back. But also, my friend, I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of breweries and a lot of brewers out there. Maybe that we're just trying to follow trends, but they did just make beer kind of stupid, imperial
Yeah.
everything, pastry everything, and that
Yeah.
kind of beer is dependent on keeping consumers stupid, which they're not.
Yeah.
So there's no
Totally.
wonder that that's kind of fallen apart on Untappd, on Reddit, and social media is a factor here. So you're right to say it, man. And then
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. I mean, maybe what? Maybe it's not that people are sometimes ghosting me for no life till lager. I think a lot of people are just afraid of being recorded, afraid of what
Yeah.
they might say, afraid of that
Yeah.
it's going to live in perpetuity forever now.
Yeah.
So again, that you said a resounding hell yeah to this show. Uh, every right to be here. No imposter syndrome at Good Word Brewing, and I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. Everyone's a little bit afraid. You walk into a room of your peers, and your colleagues, and should I be here? Why am I here? And
Yeah.
everyone on the show so far is, in my opinion, leading the craft beer industry forward as opposed to kind of dragging it down or getting it left behind. So, can we speak to the beer itself on that note?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and so I was gonna say, like during COVID, that's where we kind of had that light switch that kind of flipped for me.
yeah.
So I, unless I'm interrupting for a question, if you had something you're gonna say, I just want to make sure that because I was gonna tie that back into COVID and how we started down that trend.
I mean, not at all, because I'm looking at your loggers. I see Puerto Rican style, which you mentioned, Italian style, which you mentioned, Chinese style, Canadian. I love the label. Why can't let's just remain friends no matter what?
Yeah,
I had Tom from Goldfinger on this show, so maybe I can say this now, Pivo Grozishkia, or at least I'm getting
Yeah.
closer. You also sent me a smoked lager in your box, you know, and
Oh yeah, concise design and practice.
yeah, that's another one I've never received before and a rarity in the market now. So all these beers, you know, some of them are historic kind of styles and recipes, but some are not. I feel like, do you
Yeah,
put plantains into the Puerto Rican beer,
totally.
Chinese lager, Chinese style lager is a rice
Yeah,
lager. I just feel
it's a
like you're
right.
thinking like a
Yeah,
chef. I feel like you all are thinking like a
yeah,
chef, like a culinary medium, you know, like a cook
totally.
when you're making these. So, yeah, tell me more about how COVID
Yeah,
started to wind down, how the lager started to wind up.
totally. So I will say thank you for saying all that. That really means a lot. I always try to like because I don't think there's only so much you can do in beer, right? Because Sam Caljon and his collaborators have done such cool stuff with beer. Very funky. I I learned lessons along those first 3 or 4 years, 3, 4, 5 years, first few years,
Mm,
about how much risk I wanted to take, and
mhm.
I decided to start a really peeling back as far as how much I wanted to do. So typically, if it's a classic style, there's not much I want to fuck with. Like I just want to
Yeah,
keep it simple and let's mess with recipe as far as maybe not ingredients outside of adding plantains, which was a new one, but not too much within that realm. But I'll come back to that because the plantain was a good one.
yeah.
So yeah, during COVID, we did one contract group. So check this out. I've never we're so small. We're never having the space. So no one, we would never do a contract group. But when COVID hit, we were so strapped. I was making crowlers and we started running out of beer. And there was a huge brewery that was in planning. They've honestly opened and closed since they were called Iron Shield. But the guy who was the owner and brewmaster over there was our consultant. We hired him. He's a great guy. But he was trying to get this non-alcoholic contract, and I forget the name of that brewery, Brightside or something. I forget the name. Maybe it was Brightside. I can't remember.
Mm.
Anyway, he was like, "Hey, if you do this beer for us, I will pay you." And I was like, well, "Cool, how much?" And he told me how much. I was like, "Well, I can buy 3 or 4 rounds of vodka beer for like ingredients for lager beer." And so I did it. I did one contract brew, and I was able to buy a bunch of material for lager. And there was a brewery. It's gone now. Blackberry Farm Brewery. Blackberry Farm is still there, but the brewery's gone. So we had made a lager with them, I think just before COVID shut down. That was the Any Day Now. We came up with the name right after COVID did, but we had brewed it right around there. I think it was like February. And Any Day Now was a joke. The cover art is like Casablanca, but the Any Day Now was a knock to Donald Trump's first presidency because he was like, any day it's gonna go away. Any day now, it's gonna leave. You're never gonna hear COVID again. I was like, this fucking idiot. And so it came from that, like this notion that like someone who has no fucking clue what they're talking about can give us this false sense of hope. And maybe that's what I don't know. Maybe false sense of hope is good sometimes, but when you got
Maybe.
a big
Good
fucking
Trump
dummy,
impression right there.
things. When you got a dummy like that saying it. Anyway, so it's a jab at Trump, which obviously the Canadian one was too. It's more of an
Yeah.
apology. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that was not our first foray into lagers. We always had at least 1 or 2 lagers on at all times back then. But when COVID hit and I got that contract money, I brewed everything was a lager in all 6 fermenters. And so I'm like, all
Awesome.
right, now
Awesome.
let's see what happens. And so we kind of just flipped it a little bit. And it was like, we're still going to do hop forward beer. We're still going to do English beer and saison, and we'll do some sour beer, fruited sour sometimes, and mixed culture stuff. But we're going to focus on lager and English beer. That's going to be our primary thing. Is that, and that came from where we wanted to be placed in the brewing world, or where I wanted to up climb up to, and so. Yeah, that was all in 2020, and so that's when that kind of trajectory started for us, and we just keep down that road, and everything that we can learn, like I was saying earlier, we do, and yeah,
It's good stuff.
any day
I
now
mean,
it's gonna disappear. You're never gonna hear it again. So, yeah.
Again, maybe some silver lining in COVID here, because I mean, we should stop to appreciate kind of where we are now, where the beer scene is now versus where it was 5, 6 years ago, because so much of what you do, extended cold conditioning, 35
Yeah,
degrees below, minimum of lagering for 4 weeks, Spunding, capturing
yeah,
natural carbonation, krausening, spurring secondary fermentation with freshly fermenting beer,
yep.
decoction mashing. We'll talk about that a little more.
We're doing it right
Side,
now.
yeah, side pull faucets. I see that you were on the Luker Perfect Pour mission. So Luker
Yeah, yeah.
Faucets is going to be teaching a class, I think, and preaching the good word
Three, three
of a
classes.
Czech side pull faucet at Good Word.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this was not the norm in the American craft beer scene 5, 6 years ago.
yeah,
And you, along with everyone who's been on this show to date, has changed that narrative. So now we can enjoy it present day.
yeah.
And, in the midst of all of that technique, all of that time, all of that labor, what else would you say just kind of makes Good Word a little bit different from some of your brothers, some of your sisters, some of the other breweries and colleagues out there on the landscape? You do lagers along with English style ales, which I love, along with IPAs. So you don't discriminate. You offer a full portfolio.
Yeah.
Um, but that you are flying the flag for lager beer in this way. Just tell me a little bit else about what you feel like really makes your work at Good Word stand out among the rest.
Um, Man, I don't. That's always such a tough question because I don't think we're in my favorite brewery yet on here already. Actually, it's the
Yeah.
best brewer in America.
The name has
Uh,
been mentioned on every single episode,
she's the
that
best.
she has taught and shared and helped other breweries and
Yeah,
inspired other breweries. True industry leader, true legend. So shout out to you, Ashley and Bierstadt.
she's a real one. She's awesome. She's great. But yeah, I don't know that we're doing something so different. I mean, like, but to name another brewer who's also great, Kevin Davey. You
Oh,
know, and I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember. I always feel like when I'm quoting somebody, I'll fuck up their actual quote. But it's that adage. And I know he said something to this effect on one podcast I heard him on, but it's not the one thing you're doing. It's all those things along the way in the process that are like really stitching it all together. But I feel
yeah,
like we were making really good work for a long time, and our selling practices were fine, but we've gotten those better. We're filtering our beer now. We're trying to make sure that practice is just as good. Canning beer, all the things that we do down the line from start to finish, and that starts with like sourcing, great quality malt and hops, and of course fresh yeast. We've got a lab here. I mean, I don't know many breweries that have 1,000 barrels produced a year that have the resources as far as the lab that just over the years I've just acquired a lab shed, and now we have
yeah.
two people. They're not full time lab people by any stretch, but I've got two different two different ladies that work here, Courtney and Grace. Grace has a master's in chemistry, and Courtney has an undergrad. They both work together on building SOP, and then Courtney helps the day to day. We had Creature Comforts director of quality here yesterday, Daniel LePage, not just testing stuff for us as far as DO goes and all this in our brew house, because we don't have some equipment. Like some of this equipment is like prohibitively expensive. Like a DO meter is like 12 to 20,000, depending on how much you get. So,
Ah,
or depending on what you get. They're checking our DO levels, and then he spent some time with Courtney and Grace in the lab because we've got a UV hood. We want to start growing yeast. We do crop some yeast, but we're trying to grow it from 50 mils up and all this, and so in a PCR machine. So he's working with them on making sure we have things from A to Z, just so we can, you know, have all this working great. But we run all of our beer not just through a sensory, but through, you know, lab analysis. Like we have spectral photometer for all of our diacetyl checks. We don't just go,
oh, wow.
I warmed it up. Do you get it? Like not that
Yeah,
there's anything
yeah,
wrong with it. You should at least be doing that. But so I don't think there's anything that makes us different. But if there's somebody who I know and trust and is going to help me, I'm going to friggin' listen. And
yeah,
again, Ashley's one of those people that, she's just great, man. And the best brewers, and she's not the only one who shared. We've had plenty of people who shared with us. Um, the best brewers just they share. They're an open book, and that's how I've always felt. And
The best
like I
brewer and
said,
the best people. Sharing's caring.
yeah. But
Um,
over the years, and I've got two guys in the brewery now besides myself. One guy's been full time for a while. Just started training him to brew probably 2 months ago, and he's doing 95% of the brew day. But I'm still here making sure like it's all good because I'm always worried about like not being hands on with that. So that's why I was like, if you see somebody pop out, and I'm looking this way, it's probably because we're finishing up the brew day. But he's great. But him, Clay, and then Andrew, who has a lot of brewing experience from other places. But we weren't hiring in the brewery, so when he came on, he got a job as a server, and then he started bartending, and then he's managing. He's like, I'd love to get back in the brewery. So we were doing 2 days, and now we're doing 4 days. But it's a shared knowledge back there. Like we are such nerds as far as
yeah.
process goes. We're constantly talking about this or sharing things that we're reading on our Signal chats and stuff like this. But we're just trying to get really organized all the time.
I mean, here's to a good team at Good Word, and the fact that you have a full lab for your size and scale, like that,
Yeah,
that is different. So that goes back to maybe being a musician and a home brewer and your gear acquisition syndrome.
yeah,
That's
that
impressive.
for sure.
That's unique,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. For our
And you know
size,
what?
it is.
Yeah, yeah. And I think thinking back on it, it might have been Kevin Davey in our very first episode that said British bitter was gonna be the next
Is that
big
what he
thing in the
said?
craft beer industry. So maybe he did predict some
Nice.
of the future
Well,
there. There are two things I can see that clearly do make Good Word different. So one,
okay.
the emphasis on being a public house.
Yeah,
And you spoke to this before. I think being a community gathering place, but also the emphasis on you know comfort and hospitality, and like Southern comfort and Southern hospitality are very
yeah,
real and very distinct. The food you offer, the menu you have looks amazing, and that
yeah,
you have a full wine and cocktail program also makes a big difference. So I just what does it mean to you to be a public house? Why the emphasis on not just Good Word Brewing and bar or pub, but what does it mean to you to be a
yeah.
public house?
I mean, the idea of a true publican, it goes back to hosting people. And, like, I feel like the vibe of a brewery is so much different than a pub, right? When I think about a brewery, I think about a couple of lonely white dudes sipping. I don't know. I'm being, it's not like I'm start being a dick. But I don't know. But when I think about Good Word, I think about this eclectic community made up of all sorts of folks. And I don't mean now it's like I'm belittling others to try to make a point that's not good, but or the idea of others. But I don't know. I think that the public house is a place for everybody, and again, I and I, and when you come, you'll see. Like I said, we're Duluth and Johns Creek, which is a neighboring little town. It's Johns Creek has people with a little bit of money, and it's very suburban. Uh, and I feel like there's a juxtaposition between that and Duluth and Beaufort Highway, and I feel like we've made it pretty obviously, hopefully for everyone that is around us, that we are for everybody, and that's one of the reasons we do a Puerto Rican South Hills and have a big party for it. And we have, my friend DJ Fernando come and do Puerto Rican food that day. Well, Puerto Rican features, not a whole menu split or anything like that. And then we do a Korean style lager, and we did the Chinese style lager with Masterpiece. Which Masterpiece is a Szechuan restaurant right down the road. It's fucking incredible.
Nice.
We did a pop up with those guys, and we had features that we did. We want to be like, hey, listen, we see you, we are you. Like, we're not just this stuffy bunch of fucking white people. You know what I mean? Like,
Ah,
again, I always consider myself Puerto Rican because I was raised by a Puerto Rican lady. So I always make sure people know, hey, I see you, I got you.
yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah.
I think a long way around not answering your question, but it's for everybody.
It's for everybody. I mean, it just
For
sounds like
everybody.
you're extending a very warm welcome to
Yeah.
everyone who walks through your door there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then talking about the festivals. I mean, the fact that you have multiple
Yeah,
brewery-owned, brewery-operated festivals, which are the best kind of beer festivals happening right now.
yeah,
But Little Beer Fest, the Small Beer Festival. I think you just did the fifth one as an annual Lager Fest,
yeah.
and the sixth one has already been announced for next year. Mighty Fine West Coast IPA Festival just happened for the first time. I want to say
It was
Les
hot
Bons
as
Saison.
fuck. It was so
Yeah.
hot. No, heat wise, it
uh,
was hot.
and Les Bons Saison Oyster Fest, the
Yeah,
fourth one coming up in September. So tell me a little bit about this. Just these festivals are a labor of love. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of money.
yeah,
And they don't necessarily make money from it. So just tell us how you do
yeah,
not one, not two, but three. Some of the logistics, some of the planning, some of the selection that goes into it. Like, does
yeah.
that also fall into one of the many buckets you hold, or how does it work? How does it all come together?
Oh yeah, I definitely am the one doing the festivals. It's great. Like the first little beer, one of my partners was helping me coordinate it, but it was me reaching out. The original idea though for little beer, and we did it in June 2021, was we had hoped to do it sometime later in that year. We reached out to the city and they were like, "Oh, this sounds like a cool idea." This was January or February of 2021, and they were like, "This sounds like a cool idea. Hit us up again, next year or later this year. Maybe we can get on the calendar for the following." Like, okay, and then they reached out 7 weeks before the date, because the date we did the first one, because something fell off the calendar. Like, can you still pull this festival off 7 weeks before the fest? And I
Wow.
said, yes, I can. And so I originally wanted to have lager only, but it was still so heavy COVID time. A lot of people were like, I can send beer, but I can't come. And I was like, well, I knew that I had to beat down the ratio of who's going to just send beer or who's going to be there, right? Because
Yeah.
the festivals where like, oh yeah, we'll have such and such brew, but you just have a volunteer pouring, not the best, right? And I get everybody's time. It sucks to travel and it's expensive and all that stuff. We have people, and sometimes I send just beer
Yeah.
to fest, so I get it. But
Yeah.
but anyway, when I started getting the no's from the original 25 or so brewers that I wanted, I was like, all right, so I need to think outside the box. So I started opening it up. And over the first couple of years of being open, we made a lot of friends. A lot of them weren't like necessarily lager centric brewers, but they made
Mhm.
lager. And
Yeah.
so we had about 55 brewers out there, and some make great lager. And instead of doing it on Town Green, we did it right here in what they call Parsons Alley. So that first fest we did was thrown together. It was cobbled together like very, very quick. The city helped in an immense way. We closed the road off. We sold probably 160 tickets, so we definitely lost money the first year, but it was such a cool vibe, even though it was so hot. It was like June 5th, 2021 is when we did Little Beer 1. And we're like, cool. We didn't make any money. This was so fucking cool, though. We're going to do it again. And it was outside of Pills and Love, I think it was the first Lager Fest in the country. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But Pills and
A
Love, I
lot
think
of
it
these,
happened twice.
yeah. I feel like the ones still running today, like all the newer ones, like Your Generation Lagerfest, we'll say,
Yeah.
all kind of started around the same time, give or take, which is also amazing. It
Yeah.
shows the direction the industry was heading. But yeah, Pills and Love kind of set the model. And then we got to give
Definitely.
a shout out to Firestone Walker for this standard of like,
Firestone
if you're
Walk.
going to pour, you got to have a brewer present. You got to have someone who can speak directly to it.
Totally, totally. So then, to kind of keep it going, it caught so much momentum in the brewing industry with brewers. Like it wasn't like, it's getting talked about on, magazines or anything like that, brewer publications. It was literally like, this festival is fucking great. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of people there, but it was a brewer hang. And so that's what we realized. It's like, all right, we're just going to treat the brewers like fucking royalty and it'll be fine.
As they
The rest of
should
it will take care
be.
of itself. Yes.
Yeah, hell
And,
yeah.
and, and so the next year we put it on the Town Green. We added about 20 more brewers. And so it was around 70 or so the second year, 65, 70. And we still didn't make any money the next year. And then Little Beer 3, we saw it like uptick in ticket sales. And we thought it was just going to pop off on year 3. And it just didn't. But it was still so much fun and so cool. and we had leftover beer, and I started realizing the way to make money was to like ask for a little bit less beer, right? And so by the
Ah,
time Little Beer 4 happened, we made money. I mean, I know it
you got it
sounds
down.
crazy to say it, but we fucking made money. This year we made money too. It's not like it's so much we're like, all right, we're retiring, but you
Yeah.
know, it's a lot of concerted efforts to get it done. So when you don't come up in the red, it feels good.
Oh, of course.
But Laban, you know, like you mentioned, this is the fourth Laban. So
Mhm.
Laban originally was going to be like the VIP for Little Beer. It's like, oh, we'll have like saison goose, we'll have all this sort of stuff. And I was like, I feel like Little Beer is kind of the antithesis of VIP, so we don't do a VIP like session.
Mhm.
We have like a VIP. You can buy a mug and then whatever, but it's not like you don't get in an hour early. You don't get nothing. You just get a bigger
Sure.
glass.
With Little Beer Fest, it's just the emphasis. So it's not just all lager, but the emphasis is on low alcohol. And, it's happening in a time where beer festivals are becoming under increasingly scrutinized for being drunk fests,
Oh yeah,
for high
yeah,
octane,
yeah.
high alcohol. So, I mean, just what was, again, the vision and the mission there. And I'm seeing it more and more. I think Long Beach Beer Lab down in Southern California
Oh, cool,
just
cool.
launched like a
I
crispy
know those
beer
guys a little
fest.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're seeing
So
it more and more, but there's something to this model that is working. And
yeah,
if you're saying it's now turning a profit for you, I mean, even better.
yeah. I mean, we lost money on Mighty Fine. Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
So the money we made for Little Beer, we lost on Mighty Fine this year, but we got a plan for Mighty Fine. But
Hmm.
so there is criteria for a Little Beer, right? It is lager focused, right? So it's every brewer has to bring one lager and one. It's supposed to be English beer, but it can be another lager or something that's 5.5% ABV or lower. But both beers
English
have to be
beer is
five and a
coming
half.
back again. I love it.
I've been saying it for 5 years that it had been English beer, and it's funny. Year one, like two people besides us may have had an English beer, but
Yeah.
slowly but surely, like now everybody, not everybody, but I'd say like a third of the brewers are bringing English beer now, which is
Yeah.
cool. And I've had people bring casks and stuff like this as well.
Yeah.
But you know, I've got love for hops too, like you mentioned earlier. So we've been wanting to do a West Coast IPA fest for super long. But when I was in Denver, outside of being at Beer Stock, Alice and Slowport, of course, I was drinking some West Coast IPAs. And then
Sure.
I had a beer dinner with the guys at Fauna Flora, and they had this super unique West Coast IPA called Cudzilla, the kudzu flowers. And it fucking was rocking my world. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, all right. And I used to be a hophead. I used to love like the bitter wars of, the mid 2000s, early 2000s. And
Weren't we
so
all?
I
Didn't
love,
we all?
I love it.
Yeah.
Ruination was one of my favorite beers. But
Yeah.
anyway, so all of that like spurred the idea for the West Coast IPA Fest. But we didn't have a good. I was looking at the calendar and I was like, all right, if Little Beer's gonna be here, I need 3 months to put this other festival on. Then I need 3 months for Le Bon, and then it'll be 3 months ish before our seventh anniversary, so our eighth
Wow.
anniversry this year. So
Happy
I had to.
anniversary.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I was trying to plot all that out, and on the calendar it sounded good, but it just wasn't enough time, truthfully. But Mighty Fine was great. That we had a bunch of brewers from the PNW and the West Coast come and visit. Next year, though, what we're going to do, we're going to move. So Little Beer will be March 28th, I think, last Saturday, March, and
Mhm.
then we're going to figure out what to do with Lebon. This I always joke to say it's going to be the last year for Little Beer or Lebon, but this might be the last year for Lebon. I don't know.
Ah,
It's so small. It's so easy to do. It's just trying to find out a good time to do it. But that's TBD. But we're going to move Mighty Fine 2 to the first Saturday in November. And it'll coincide with our ninth anniversary.
yeah. Yeah. Well, they are all your children,
Yes.
all three festivals, and I'll say it again, happy anniversary. And one thing I do also want to ask you, um, before we do move to kind of our rapid fire, the last few questions I like to ask everyone who
Yeah.
does No Life Till Lager, parallels between lager beer and West Coast IPA, and is it all related between one festival that kind of inspired you to start the other? Because like if I'm not drinking lager beer, I will typically reach for like a West Coast IPA or a pale ale,
Yeah.
always under 7%, always bracingly bitter, always beautifully filtered. And it does kind of scratch a similar itch, I got to say. Like I find it inspiring in the glass in same ways and likewise refreshing,
Yeah.
refreshing. So what do you think there's any kind of symmetry, any kind of parallel there? Or is it just, you like your lagers, you like your West Coast IPAs, and that's why you have a festival for each? But do you see one that would drive a drinker of lager to West Coast IPA, or one that would drive like a drinker of West Coast IPA to lagers?
I
Is there
think
a
that,
parallel path?
well, I don't know if I don't know. I guess I'll say this for me. Like, I can see a person who really loves lager looking at West Coast IPA and be like, man, they're typically really well made or whatever because they're balanced in the way that depending on ABV, but they're pretty balanced. Like, I think it's easy to pick on like hazy beers, which I do think those can be great as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the more, and we've learned a lot about hops. I'd say obviously been using a long time, but I feel like we've learned a lot in the last like year or so with hops, and I've been befriending more hop forward brewers, and they're smart. They're really smart about how they. I don't know why I'm surprised when I say that, but the way they approach beers, man, they're like really thoughtful. I think, and I think that a lot of times it can be easy if you focus mainly on European styles and be like, oh yeah, throw a bunch of fucking hops in there. It's gonna be fine. I don't.
Uh,
I don't. I feel like the brewers that I am referring to, Cloudburst, the Pine Houses, Russian River, of course, is amazing.
sure.
Um, Parks and Walk, all these brewers, they're really like mindful and they know their hops so well, and they work with these really, like Coleman Farms. We use some Coleman Citra, and it's fucking lights out. It's crazy. Like, so I feel like in some of the farm breweries in the country that are focusing on, terroir as far as the malt goes. I'm not a big craft malt person. I get the thing behind it. I just think that sometimes the grain wants to be a little louder than it should, and I think about it in the sort of a concerto, like everybody's got a part to play. Don't take a solo. But I feel
Interesting.
like maybe I don't love the craft malt quite as much, but I'm really starting to appreciate the craft, like the small farm hops. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so I don't know if I can draw similarities in any great way, but yeah, I've met some really great hop brewers, Bidens. Those guys are very thoughtful and smart about how they make their IPAs, and yeah, they're
Yeah.
making a lot of success off of.
I guess I asked because these are kind of the two broad styles of beer that I still really love to drink.
Yeah,
So if I can find any symmetry between one and the other, I'll take it. But they're always the first styles I reach for. And there's a time and a place for both, that's for sure. And there's festivals for both, thanks to
yeah,
you. And I feel like I'm also seeing more kind of West Coast, more emphasis on West Coast among the festival circuit as well. So all good things. And I guess we also just want to say thank you to our Canadian neighbors. I don't know if it's Canadian malt that's going into your Canadian lager. I'm
oh
assuming it
yeah, it
is.
is. Yeah, I mean
So again, let's stay
it's a
friends.
yeah. Let's stay friends no matter what. Okay, but yeah, it's a malty pale ale. Like it's funny because I hate. I don't should say the word hate. Some little catchy, trendy things like crispy boy or it's crispy or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying. It's like some shit should be fucking malty, bro. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's stay friends no matter what. Okay, is a very malty pale ale. It started with a pretty high starting gravity, and it's pretty full finishing, but it's supposed to be.
It's a
Uh,
pale ale. It's not a lager. It's a pale ale.
no, it's a pale lager.
Pale lager. Got it.
But anyway, it's a malty one though. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and it's meant to be. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everything's gonna be crispy. It's like not every beer
Yeah.
needs to be fucking 1.2 Play-Doh. So
Yeah, you know what I will say? You've never heard Crispy Boy on this show spelled BOI. So yeah, I'll
good,
take it. We'll keep
good.
running without it.
Yeah,
Good stuff from Good Word. Let's move to just a few last kind of rapid fire questions, Todd.
sure.
I know your public house is getting ready to open for the day, but say as much or as little as you want about this. Non-alcoholic beer, just the rise in dialogue
Yeah.
and the algorithm pushing sobriety, pushing temperance, and the fact that that category is growing where all other categories of alcohol might be struggling at the moment. What do you think? Do you offer it at
Oh yeah.
Good Word at the pub there? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, we for sure do. I mean, so we've got two different NA beers, and we've got some NA cocktails that actually just got in today. So I think that to not offer it would be kind of silly.
Mhm.
And I told you at the top of the show, like I've got cans over here, but I don't usually drink during the week, especially during brewing or anything like that,
Yeah.
unless there's an event or something like that going on. So, and honestly, that was lessons from COVID. It's like, trying to make sure I've got a handle on my own self. And so I appreciate and respect everybody as far as trying to gain control over that. But I think that alcohol as a recreational thing is great. It has made some of the worst conversations better. It's made some of the worst news easier to handle. Um, I think that anything in excess is good, right?
Yes.
But I also think it's just kind of popular to talk about it right now. It's like, I don't know. When I see somebody saying they're sober, if there is a reason you're sober, fucking awesome, great
Sure.
for you. Um, but campaigning for it a little bit, I don't know. I'm a campaign for mental well-being and mental health in general, so
Yeah.
I'm a little torn about campaigning it, but I don't know. I'm going to sit here now and talk about alcohol until they ban it. So
Yeah.
hopefully that
Yeah.
never fucking happens. But I don't know, man. Do whatever you think is best for you when you think it's right. As long as you're not hurting anybody. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Uh,
I think it's mostly trendy in some ways, but if you're doing for health reasons or for personal reasons, so be it. That's your fucking business. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. Wise words and good words to live by. Again, I think social media, talking about, you mentioned Untappd before, you mentioned Reddit before. Social media, I think, is a huge factor here. And the volume around sobriety and temperance right now, I mean, it does kind of remind me a little bit of like for like pre-prohibition. It's just reaching a height and it's kind of changing the nature of the game. And when Kevin was on the show, he said dry January alone is just kind of messing with supply chain and what brewers need, because it's
Yeah.
putting just so much hurt in sales that month. So
We
it's
do
good to have
dry
options.
January. I didn't coin that. That was told to me by Matty Hardrope, my
Dry
homie from
January.
High,
Good,
High, High Wire
good
Distilling.
stuff.
Yeah.
So to each his own, good to have alternatives and good to have options and good to know you can get it at Good Word when you need it. But I'm with you. I will preach the good word of low alcohol, high quality beers until it's banned and then find another way to do it. So
There we go.
um, moving right along, celebrity loggers. You know what? This one, I usually ask people just, there's a few on the market. Who would it be and why if you were going to make one? Something different for you though, because I know you, like Ashley at Bierstadt, you have wrestling as part of your events, part of your
Of
festivals
Mighty
at the
Fun,
brewery.
yeah.
So Hulk Hogan died recently. I'm sure there was a huge spike in sales for real
Oh,
American
for them.
beer. Um,
RIP there. I liked him as a kid, but fucking
yeah,
fuck his bullshit lately. I mean, he's kind of
I
a
mean, we
beast.
know we know what you think about Donald Trump, so I'm guessing by extension we can guess what you think about Hulk Hogan now.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hulk Hogan fans, if you're out there. Hulksters.
Uh,
Whatever.
s- Same thing as a kid growing up.
Yeah.
Icon, later years, questionable. Beer, never had it, but probably
Yeah,
questionable.
same.
But hey, I bet sales are soaring for them right now. And this isn't wrestling, but garage beer from Kelsey Brothers. I mean, distributed
Okay,
in
yeah,
50,
yeah.
yeah, distributed in 50 states, 300,000 barrels this year to date, 4 million CEs, 4 million case
Wow.
equivalents sold nationally. It kind of puts this whole all the doom and gloom around the beer industry in perspective because that's a lager beer, very straightforward, simple. I think they offer like a light American lager and then a lime variation. They've got some quirky marketing and obviously some celebrity backing, and they're
Yeah.
doing extremely well. So I guess I wanted to ask you just your thoughts on these beers, on celebrity lagers, and then just why do you think pro wrestling pairs well with craft beer, with beer festivals? Why are they so much fun and sometimes better together?
I'll speak to the wrestling first. I feel like there's something very blue collar about American lager, right? It feels down home. And I think that, you know, maybe this is just growing from the 80s, but wrestling was definitely a blue collar. It felt like a lower, middle, lower class kind of thing that you'd be into. We weren't reading books. We were like taking pillows and wrestling with pillows and wrestling each other, like emulating the wrestlers. So I don't know. I feel like those kind of go hand in hand. They're, carnal. They're like carnal things. Watching two people fake battle it out and
Yeah.
actually drink beer kind of work well together. So I don't know. I think it's kind of symbiotic. I didn't know how the wrestling was going to be out there for Mighty Farm, but it was fucking awesome. We've been talking about doing wrestling here for a while. We almost got Ric Flair. He's been in the restaurant before, and I was too fucking shy to say anything to him. And he was drinking wine, of course, but I was like, God, I'm going to pour some beer. So
well, Rick, if you're listening, come back for another visit.
Yeah. He was drinking red wine or something. I can't remember. But anyway, the city had wanted the wrestling, so because they tried to get Ric Flair down here before, and it didn't work out. So I was like, yeah, let's do wrestling. We were supposed to have ladies arm wrestling too, but it didn't work out. The ref failed to make it something like this. But
next year.
But as far as the celebrity stuff, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I think that anything that turns people into drinking lager, beer, or beer, keep drinking beer with alcohol in it, is a positive for everybody in this industry, right? Even even Budweiser's like, as long as somebody's selling beer, I think it's good. To keep it kind of relevant. Again, I hate to see people doing bad, but we're doing good. We're up like over 22%. So that's inside the restaurant. We're making more beer. Bye. Thank you. So yeah, we're fortunate. So
that's been a recurring theme for breweries that own a restaurant, that operate a pub, and that are content to serve their community and become a gathering place. I've heard that across the board. If you're trying to take over the market or making a bid for shelf space and national distribution, then you definitely need the Kelsey brothers on board at this point. But if you're content to own your own backyard, there is a way. So I'm glad to see you thriving and surviving. Decoction mashing, we know it's a part of your process. I always ask people in a single word, yes or no, unless you want to deviate. I'm guessing you would say yes. And without going just too deep into it, though, tell me a little bit how that has been part of the standard since you've been brewing lager beer.
So we don't decoct every single lager. There was a time where we were, but I kind of go back and forth, man. Honestly, like I love beer that has a great depth of malt character, but I also think there's something to be said for the hot side DO, right? And so we use some oxygen scavenging things to kind of beat down some of those DO numbers within the brewing process and decoction process. But also, I'm a fan of a couple quick steps to have a super clean, lager. So I'm a little bit of both. Do we decoct mostly? Yeah, we mostly decoct here. I think it I don't know. When we're looking at it, it's funny because we were talking about this earlier, and one of the newer guys, Andrew, I had mentioned, he was like, so how long will we decoct this? And, whatever, and led this conversation of like, well, it kind of depends on what it is and what we're trying to get out of the beer. So if we're talking like German pills, 10, 15 minutes for us. That's it. Single decoction, done. Yeah. If it's going to be a Czech beer, it's going to have multiple decoctions, and it's going to be 15 to 20 minutes for pale beer. And then for Martin, we typically, and I lied to him actually, and I'm thinking about it. I said triple, and we did 25 minutes, but we did double. We after last year, I decided to stop and do triple on that one. But 20, 25 minutes for beer that's going to have a little more color. But I think it adds this great depth of flavor. But, I think that you can get great results without that. We use under-modified malt for the most part when we're doing those decoctions. But I also think that you take a highly modified malt and you boil the shit out of it, you're going to get more flavor out of it. Just, whether it's needed or not, that's not the point.
Yeah.
We're not doing this because we're trying to, we are trying to make a point. And it's that we don't care how much work it takes. We're going to fucking do it because we want to make the best beer we can make. And so that's why we continue to, it's a Japanese saying. I went to Japan recently. It was fucking amazing with the whole family, me and my wife and 3 daughters.
Awesome.
Kaiten. It's that, honing, always honing. Iron sharpens iron sort of mentality. That's why I
Yeah.
surround myself with good people, good brewers, smart
Well,
brewers.
so yes to decoction, but a resounding maybe, depending on kind of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to
Yeah,
make it. And
definitely
you know,
maybe.
I didn't know buying under modified malt was an option, but it makes perfect sense if you're
Yeah,
decoction
typically if you see
master.
that
So
whole
that's good.
four malted thing,
Yeah.
like when I got to go do the Czech agriculture trip this year, which was great.
Mhm.
We went to Ferdinand, and they do which is forgetting that region, but it's in the Czech Republic, and they make the four malted malt for environment. But yeah,
Yeah.
typically four malted is under modified, from
Yeah.
what I understand. But yeah,
Todd, well, I'll say it again. Good stuff. And my last question for you. Well, first and foremost, is there anything else you want to say to our listeners? Any way to watch for news regarding Little Beer Fest, Mighty Fine Fest, and Le Bon Saison Oyster Fest coming up? And then, to end, what do you want to say to anyone who's approaching their first beer at the age of 21, give or take? Anyone who's pondering their last beer at the age of 101, give or take? What do you want to say to new and old beer drinkers out there alike? Not
um,
old, seasoned. We'll put it that way.
there you go. Okay, nice. You know, I've had this saying about beer for a while since my bookstore days, and it's kind of like don't cry over spilled milk, because it's only fucking beer, right? It's wonderful that I am, and many of my colleagues are in this field to be able to be making beer. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a wonderful way to spend the day, even though sometimes I feel like my hair is on fire. Um, so yeah, I mean, young or old, it's only beer, and you should enjoy it. And don't fuss over it too much. Don't think about it too much. Just drink it. Well, it's terrible. You're only going to have so many, so choose a good beer
Yeah.
to drink.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is, the first thing you said was, if craft beer is dead, welcome to the afterlife.
Yeah.
And hopefully everybody can kind of, feel a little bit of that sort of mantra, so we can keep this train rolling, because we need. I feel like and it sucks to see incredible brewery. It sucks to see anybody close, but when you see like incredible brewers like Shutter, it's like fuck. So whatever keeps people interested in craft beer, let's all sort of get around that.
Yeah. Well, if craft beer is dead, welcome to the afterlife. And I'm glad to be here, Todd. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you for having me.
if you like what you're hearing, uncensored, uncut, and live from Good Word Brewing Public House in Duluth. Yes, like, follow, subscribe, put it on Untappd, put it on Reddit, or don't. We just thank you for your ears, and we want you to help us hit the road and make a better kind of beer show. So to you, Todd, to you, Good Word, thank you for sharing Todd Die with me, and I wish you all a good night and good lager. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
No life till I